And welcome to our October edition of Sports Highlights on the road as we're here at Cox High School in Virginia Beach. Sports Highlights airs on Mondays at 7, 2, and 7, weekends at 9 a.m. on Cox Cable 47, 517, NNPSTV.com, and always on social media and YouTube. Well, folks, it's a pleasure to talk to former LSU, former Steeler, former Jet, and former Cardinal Alan Faneca, who's also in the 2021 Pro Football Hall of Fame as the head coach of Cox High School. Good to see you.
God, thanks for having me.
Boy, it started off when you were a young kid in Louisiana, and it evolved from there.
Just kept growing. It just kept growing, and was blessed along the way. And this great journey that I got up and spoke about, got the chance to speak about at the Hall of Fame, just amazing.
We'll talk about some of that journey early on in high school. Who was your big motivator, and who influenced you the most when you were young?
Coaches. I always go back to my coaches. And I know so many people are fortunate, but I feel even extra blessed to have so many great coaches in my life who pushed my buttons, drove me, saw my drive, pushed me even harder, maybe than the guys next to me, and always demanded the best out of me, and it always brought the best out of me, which was allowed me to grow and keep continuing to get better and better.
Did you play a lot of different positions in high school? Because primarily you were a guard in the NFL, but talk about all the different positions you played over the years.
Yeah, so I think like a lot of linemen, you have aspirations of playing anything that catches the ball or touches the ball besides center. So I was always an offensive lineman, but on defense, I started out as a linebacker. Then I grew a little bit, and then all of a sudden I became a defensive end. And then I grew a little bit more, and all of a sudden I slid into a defensive tackle and stayed there for the rest of my my high school days. So that was kind of my progression as I grew. And then when I got to high school, we went, depending if we were a 3-down or a 4-down team, that's where I would play that week. So I would play guard some weeks, and then I would play tackle some weeks, depending on whatever defense it was. And I generally would only play defense in the big games that they needed me to go both ways.
We heard how big high school football is in Texas, the Friday night lights. How was it in Louisiana?
Oh, it was great, man. It was great. Very competitive. Went to a great school with a good tradition down there called John Curtis. You might see them on ESPN playing games every once in a while. So really gave me a great start into football. But I tell you what, man, when I moved between 8th grade and 9th grade, moved to just outside of Houston, it's a whole nother world in Texas. I mean, it's a whole nother world. Yeah. I go from playing 8th grade ball to playing some junior varsity games, occasionally going to get some playing time with the JV guys, to I move over there as a freshman in high school. There's 2 9th grade teams, there's a sophomore team, there's a JV team, and there's a varsity team. I didn't play varsity till I was a junior in high school.
Wow.
You got to pay your dues, and there's just lots of people in front of you.
Yeah, and of course, some of those guys that you paid your dues with, you saw them in the Southeastern Conference in the NFL, correct?
Correct, yeah. So many guys went on to do good things in life, and, blessed for my teammates just as much as the coaches.
Very good. We're talking to Alan Faneca right here. He's the head football coach at Cox High School in the Pro Football Hall of Fame 2021. Of course, we've interviewed another one from Virginia Beach, Bruce Smith, who's also in the Hall of Fame, but not many from this area for sure. Lee Corso, of course, we interviewed him a long time ago, and they asked him this past recently in September, how tough is it to play at Penn State during the whiteout? He goes, what are you talking about? There's nothing like Saturday night at LSU. And to watch those games, even when Coach DiNardo was coaching, they were events.
Oh, man, they were just humongous. The fans, they start coming in on Friday nights, the parking lots. As a student, you can't even park in the parking lots that are used on Saturday on Friday. They're just shut down because at 12 o'clock they start letting the RVs roll in and start parking and setting it up. So, I mean, the night games, the fans are just rabid, and they know it. They know their reputation now, so they're bringing it even more. So it is something special.
And before we start talking about the NFL, when you saw LSU, you were playing under Coach DiNardo, who also coached in Indiana too. Then you saw Coach Saban came in, and then of course LSU won the championship with Burrow a few years ago. How has LSU evolved since you've left?
A lot of the guys that I played with, we got, back then they called it bringing back the magic. We had a couple rough years at LSU, and we were trying to turn it around, and we feel like we helped start and spur where they are now. But it's just great to watch. I got a chance to go back and catch 2 games, and especially the championship game was the second one that year when we won the national title just a couple years ago. So just truly special to watch them and see where they've grown and come. And I've got about 4 or 5 guys I played with that their kids are playing on the team now.
Wow.
So it's come full circle where our kids are on the team playing and doing the same things we were doing when we all met.
In the next segment, we're going to talk primarily about the NFL and the Hall of Fame as well. When you see one thing about high school, it's related to the NFL too, is the NFL training camps is nothing like it. Just seeing the relief on your face right now that I'm free, I don't have, other than coaching, we're pretty well set here. How much of a peace of mind is that for you at this stage in your life that you're here in your wife's hometown and you can pretty much just be Alan Faneca, coach football, and go about your business?
It's nice, and when I was deciding to retire, it's a hard thing. It took me longer for me to decide that it was okay for me to walk away from the game, and then I decided to retire. Then it took me to decide to retire. But it was family, time with the family, enjoying life. The grind of football, it's not only the 13 years I played, but those 4 years at LSU, everything before that, it just starts compounding, and there hits a point where you're like, I'm good, and I'm just going to step away, and I get asked a lot, do you miss it? And of course, I miss big games, I miss playoffs, Super Bowl, I start getting the itch, but do I miss training camp? Do I miss the grind of coaches wearing me down on hot days, 2-a-days? I don't miss any of that.
But you do implement some of that during practice and games, what you've learned at LSU and the NFL to your players here at Cox. They probably get valuable information, experience just for having you around.
Definitely, I try to use what I learned along the way. I try to use techniques, try to push the buttons just like coaches push my buttons as well. And you try to bring the best out of them. You try and do it out here on the practice fields. So when we come out here on Friday night, you get the best out of them, and it's a good time for everybody.
How did you pick your staff? This is your first year.
I got a lot of guys from last year that stayed on, and just interviewed a couple new guys, and back and forth, and it seemed like a good fit, and it just worked out. It's been really great so far.
Very good. How do you spend your days? Pretty much, are you just the football coach and a dad? Is that pretty much now after retirement?
I do a lot of different things. They keep me busy, a little this, a little of that, but dad comes first, and then about 1 o'clock I start gearing up, and I'm heading up here to Cox to get ready.
That's great. All right, we'll come back with our second segment with Alan Faneca, talk a lot more in depth about the NFL, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and a lot more on the October edition of Sports Highlights.
You're watching NNPS TV. Catch Sports Highlights on Mondays at 7, 2, and 7, and on Saturdays and Sundays at 9 a.m. Visit us online at nnpstv.com to view all your favorite episodes. NNPS TV, watching education happen.
And welcome back to our second segment, along with Ray Price, Greg Bicabaris at Greg Bick on Twitter and YouTube. Alan, are you big into social media?
Oh, a little bit. I dabble.
Yeah, okay. If you ever want to plug anything, feel free to. All right, let's talk about the meat and potatoes. Steelers playing for Coach Cowher, being in that system, playing. There was such a storied franchise. How was that?
Oh man, it was a true blessing. When you look back on it, to get drafted by them, to my skill set matched up with their mentality and what they like to do, and who knows how my career would have turned out. You go to a pass-heavy team, and all of a sudden I go to the St. Louis Rams at the time, and all of a sudden maybe I'm not walking into Canton like I did this past year. Who knows? But it's just a blessing.
Well, somebody that's going to join you in Canton will be your former quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, it's amazing to see him, maybe not like he once was, but to still be playing in the NFL at that level. I know Tommy Maddox also played with you as well.
Yeah, Cordell Stewart, we always had a really good tradition of ball players coming through and really great teams, putting teams together to play team ball and complementary ball. And, we had many great running games going when I was there, but, no one was a bigger fan than our defense, which was usually a top 3 defense, but they were on the sidelines cheering us on because the longer we stayed out there grinding it out, the less time they had to go out on the field, and the more time they could just pin their ears back and get after the quarterback.
And you talk about the Steelers, such tradition. The uniforms are the same, the consistency, the ownership. What was it about that when you felt your presence there with the Steelers? It was always consistent, and you were always welcome the minute you walked in.
It's a very family-run organization. Yeah. I mean, from the top down, it's family. And the types of guys that they bring in, I've never gotten an answer out of any of them, but I've probed them a little bit. We're all so similar. We all come from, California, Florida, Louisiana, Chicago, wherever. We're coming from all over the country, and the types of people that they're looking for, we're all kind of the same mold, even though we're coming from different areas and different sides of town. The same things drive us. And when we get in there in the locker room, we're tight, we're buddies, the bonds are there. And that was created before I got there, and it's still going on today. When I go back to see it, it's still there. And that's not saying, everybody's got tight bonds on other teams, but people always want to know what's special in Pittsburgh. How come they're always so consistent? And that's kind of my answer, is because when you have really good people and a good team in the locker room, that takes an 8-win team, and you get 10 wins that year.
Right.
You go from 10 to 12, you go from 14 to 16, it just builds, it gives you a couple of years. Those tight games, that's what you lean back on, that bond, that faith and trust in each other. And that's what gets you over the hump in those tight games and gets you 1 or 2 more games. And that's, 1 or 2 more games is, how many teams finish 1 or 2 games out of the playoffs?
Every year. And now there's 17 games. Is that too many, Alan?
That's too many for me.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm out before that.
Before your time, it was 14. Then they went to 16. Now it's 17. But it's not only the Steelers alumni. The radio people are the same. Everything is just so consistent there. And I think on your Super Bowl team, the Steelers that year that won it under Cowher were a wild card team.
Yeah, we were a wild card team. We had to win, I believe, the last 6 games just to make the playoffs. So our playoffs began 6 weeks, a month and a half earlier. And Coach Cowher just did a great job of just putting that singular focus on us. And that's one of the greatest things I think he did as a coach. Always, every week we'd start out and he'd put the focus and have 53 guys going in the same direction. Is about the best thing a head coach can do. Everybody's working in their own avenues, but for that one focus, and it changes every week in the NFL, but he did a great job of getting us focused.
And this area is a resort area, as you well know, but there's a lot of Steelers fans here, a lot of Washington fans, and a lot of Cowboys fans, of course. So what was your favorite rivalry that you juiced up? I guess LSU was Alabama, then NFL was...
Well, it was really Auburn when I was there, but now it definitely is Alabama. When I was in Pittsburgh, it was just definitely Baltimore. Those games were on another level, and there's a reason they're still picked. They're still picked off of those years. They're still picked for the Thursday night games, the Sunday prime time. They're just picked because of that rivalry. So that's definitely the one I think of.
I didn't experience the Steelers-Ravens rivalry till 2003, working some games, but I mean, it was an event to see you guys come there and take on, Ray Lewis and all those guys. It was just so fired up. They'd come out of the cannons with the 4th of July fireworks. What other teams like that got your juice like that?
Oh man, no other team, other team, definitely. But it is funny, so I go and play 2 years in New York, and you don't really see it as an outsider. You're like, oh, oh, we don't like Miami. Okay, that's our rivalry. So you go to New York, all of a sudden they don't like the Dolphins, and then I go out to Arizona, and then it's the 49ers. And I'm like, really? We don't like the 49ers? I'm like, all right, I don't like the 49ers either, but you just don't ever hear about it or think about it as a player on another team, what other teams' rivalries are.
And all three different medias were different. Like the Steelers media was kind of like they were rooting for the Steelers. The New York media wasn't rooting for anybody. They were always looking for negativity with the Giants and the Jets. And Arizona, of course, you guys had Kurt Warner there, and you had some good players too.
Yeah. You know, I was really blessed. You know, I never wanted to leave Pittsburgh, but to go to New York and have that experience and have made lifelong friends, and to go to Arizona, and it's such a beautiful state, and made special friends there as well, and just to be able to go ahead and do all that, you know, as a cap off to my career. You know, if I had to leave, then why not?
Yeah, because Brett Favre had a similar path as you did. He played for the Packers, then he went to play for the Jets in Minnesota as well. So it's not always easy, but you still had an ideal career there.
You make the best of it. You know, you're very blessed to have spent a decade with one team. Of course, you know, you always try and shoot for finishing it off there, but you know, it doesn't always work out that way.
All right, we're talking to 2021 Pro Football Hall of Famer. Thanks for his time, his talent, and treasure, Alan Faneca. How did you find out that you made the Hall of Fame? Where were you, and what time of the day was it?
It was 11:36 a.m. in the morning, on 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. My wife kind of had an inkling something was going on, and I was like, nah, it's going to happen next week. No way they're going to tell us now. We got to sit on a secret for 2 weeks, but that's what they did. So my wife finds out the night before. David Baker texts her and says, can you help me with a surprise? Okay. And then so you look back on it, and she was acting completely weird the night before. So then it was, you know, you start connecting the dots. Like 3 or 4 days later, it hit me. I was like, wait a second. But you know, it was there. You know, it's not the typical knock on the door in the hotel because of COVID reasons, but they did a really great job. And my wife Julie, she actually got family, drove up from South Carolina and snuck in the back door. So after I got the knock, I turned around and I'm like, where did you guys come from? They snuck around the back door. But you know, we were having a weird conversation in my room. They were trying to keep me busy waiting for David to come knock. And it's Julie, myself, and my brother-in-law. And I'm like, this is a great conversation, guys, but why are we talking in the bedroom right here? You know, let's go out here where everybody else is. And, you know, a little chuckle, and we walk out, and then the next thing you know, boom, 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 it's David Baker. And, you know, you can't miss that knock of his. He's a very large, tall man. Yes, he is. And he's got a heavy hand, and when he knocks, you know what it is.
So my thing, what's even more baffling is he's got to find all these people all over the country, you know, like Drew Pearson, yourself, and y'all could have been on vacation, you could have been at home. How did he exactly know that a secret alone?
You know, I don't know. I don't know how they planned that all out. You know, it is kind of amazing that we weren't, somebody wasn't somewhere off special or different, but you know, they pulled it off, and you can see it on that TV show that they put together. You know, they did a great job of canvassing the country and letting us all know.
We're talking to Alan Faneca here, final few moments right here on the October edition of Sports Highlights right here. Greg Picaveras along with Ray Price. And you talk about being in that atmosphere. They played the game, I believe, on a Thursday night. But as far as talk about just being in the atmosphere with all the former Steelers, some former Cardinals, some former Jets. Of course, the Steelers were your main team, but you had Franco Harris there. I mean, and you saw them around, you know, the stadium there growing up and playing for the Steelers. But what was that atmosphere like? These are all Hall of Fame. You're memorialized forever, eternalized, you know, forever.
Yeah, you know, it was just a truly special week for myself and the family. You know, there's too many special moments. We'll still talk about something and be like, yeah, we haven't talked about that yet. Just so special. You know, to be around all those guys, kind of had a deja vu moment. So there's a luncheon where it's just Hall of Famers, close the doors, and it's just us having a conversation, talking about it. I'd heard a couple stories. I'd heard put my head down, keep my mouth shut. So I didn't really know what was going on in there, but you know, it's just really great to hear everybody get up, and not everybody, but most guys get up and talk and say a few words and whatever was on their mind. It's just us though. And a very similar moment to me would have been my very first Pro Bowl. And you're in that meeting, and it's both teams in there together, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, man, I'm in the room. right? There's,
Yeah.
oh, look, there's Jerry Rice, 3 seats down,
Right.
you know, big names like that. And now I'm in that room. So
Right.
it was just a very special, oh wow moment.
When you were sitting there processing, just sitting down, thinking about all the blood, sweat, and tears in high school, at LSU, the road trips, the sacrifice, you really don't appreciate it till now when you're totally retired. The 2-a-days in the NFL, I mean, putting your body on the line each and every week, I mean, at your position, it probably was really emotional.
You know, it was, and especially the journey of writing my speech brought me down roads I'd never thought about. You know, you don't think about how you do things sometimes, and why, and your journey. You just do your journey, right? You just do what you do because that is who you are. But going down that path and rehashing things and rethinking about how things worked out and why I did things and things that I had never thought about was definitely emotional. Got a chance to reach out to people, and really this is the best thing about the whole journey is, you know, sometimes in life we don't get a chance to pause and say, I love you, thank you, I appreciate you, and got a chance to do that for so many coaches and players and family members, and just to pause and like, I got your attention right now, thank you, you are a huge part of this. Like, that was probably the most special thing about the whole thing.
Yeah, just process, and you know, your time is talent is treasure, and playing against all those players all those years, it just hits you all at once. And what was the part of the speech that really drove home for you? The most
you know, I wanted to make my stance about how epilepsy doesn't define me. I thought it was such a huge stage not to speak about my epilepsy, and to at least reach one person out there and give them hope was really something I couldn't leave behind a chance to do. Second, talking about my family and my teammates right there, that was very special for me. And you know, I'd had my moments and told people, but to be up there on stage, and I definitely got a lot of responses that I got people choked up, and I was ringing them up that night. I was like, I got another one. I did my job then. All
right, we're now in this chapter at Cox High School. You're coaching. Type of offense you run, defense you run, and do the guys are this pretty much just Coach Fanaka now, or it took a while for that for them to not to hyperventilate so much?
You know, I don't know.
Or their parents.
People ask me that a lot, and you know, sometimes I think it's a mixed bag. Maybe they don't know how to act, but I don't get a lot of the fanboy attention from them. I'm just coach, which is great, which is how it should be. But you know, it's great. You know, we come out here, you know, you got to use the types of talents that we have and put them to use. You know, you can't force an offense or a defense on them. So, you know, we use and do what we can. You know, we've had a couple injuries at quarterback that have slowed us down a little bit, but the guys have really come a long way and worked hard to overcome it and get better. And you know, we're doing pretty good right now, and just excited.
Yeah, the one thing about Virginia Beach is there are 11 high schools, so you pretty much play every team. How does that work?
Yeah, you know, it's exciting to you know, to play the teams in the beach and get around, especially after last year's shortened season. You know, to play some teams we haven't played in a while. So just really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and final few moments. What advice would you give to a kid that wants to play football for the first time? Because football is not just physical, it's a lot emotional and mental, and you know about epilepsy and everything, that a kid's self-confidence and self-esteem is very important.
So many life lessons are learned through football, and that's the greatest thing. You know, we're out here trying to win games, but it's the life lessons that we learn out on the practice field and out on here on Friday nights and everywhere in between that we learn and we grow and we help mold these young boys into young men. And you know, it definitely had an impact on me. I mean, I use lessons I learned through football every single day of my life. And, you know, it is who I am. Those lessons, and that's you know, that's the biggest thing I'm out here to do.
Right. How about the weather here compared to, let's say, Louisiana? Oh, and I got to ask you this question because the Pittsburgh fans would want to know: how many times in Pittsburgh, when you were having a rough night, did you eat at Primanti's?
Oh man, you know,
talk about it.
Oh man, gotta get some Primanti's then. You know what? I even had Primanti's at my Hall of Fame party. I brought them out there, and they set up a station, had some Primanti's at the.
I did a little research.
Okay. But no, plenty of Primanti's. Love it. Always get back and stuff. I get back to a game and the rest of the family doesn't. I make sure to send them a nice juicy picture to let them know and rub it in.
Now, what is it? Because Louisiana food's different. Around here, you're starting to see a lot of the boils becoming popular. You grew up with that. You've seen that your entire life.
Yeah.
But what is it about Primanti's? Is it the fries on the sandwich? What is? Tell us somebody who's never experienced it.
Well, it's it's a regular sandwich on some soft. I would call it French bread. That's a Louisiana, New Orleans thing. And it's got the coleslaw and the fries and everything else you like on a sandwich. I mean, it's just it's a plate on a sandwich and you're ready to go.
All right, indulge us for a minute. Speaking of food, because I'm a big foodie, and we've already talked about some restaurants here. Some of the meals that you saw some of the fellow offensive linemen and defensive linemen put away. I mean, it's all about calories, and I'm sure you've seen some guys kill some buffets.
Oh man, when you're traveling to an away game, you go to the facility in the morning and pretty much everybody runs through something to grab lunch and heads to the airplane. And we had this guy, Chris Hoke, and he would stop and he would get a bucket of chicken, and he would pretty much eat a bucket of KFC on the plane, just like every other game, I mean, it was just, we used to always just laugh at him and sometimes be like, oh, I can't finish it. And he'd leave one piece at the bottom of the bucket.
Right, so you guys ate well and stayed in nice hotels and everything else. Well, this is Alan Faneca, 2021 Hall of Famer. It's a pure honor to interview him here today at the high school he coaches now, the Cox Falcons. Alan, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was Alan Faneca right there on our October edition of Sports Highlights on the Road. I want to thank Ray Price as well and our entire crew for making this happen. And Alan right here, front and center, who played for several NFL teams and LSU and is in the Hall of Fame. For Ray Price and Alan Faneca, I'm Greg Bicoveris. Happy October, and we'll talk to you soon.